Good morning, everyone. My name is Cassandra Nelson, and I'd like to welcome Muriel Bowser, State Superintendent Grant, council members, State Board of Education Vice President Thompson, and all our other esteemed guests. We're so glad to have you all here as we celebrate the district's continued investment in young learners, families, and the early childhood education sector. Before I go any further, I'd like to share a little story with you. This is not the first time we've had the honor of meeting Muriel Bowser. It started back in 2016 at the 8th Street Festival. And you may remember, with the assistance of the festival organizer, we were able to have Muriel Bowser visit our booth. And we told her that we were opening a new child care center. And immediately her face lit up. And she said, where is it? And we had to disappoint her and say, well, it's not quite built out yet. It's just a shell right now, but we're in the process. But I knew right then that we had a champion for early childhood education. I could tell by the expression on her face that the moment we mentioned child care, that was something special to her. So, I was just thrilled. The next time we had the opportunity to meet, it was the 2017 8th Street Festival, and we had a completely built-out, state-of-the-art facility full of smiling faces, and Muriel Bowser was able to come through and take a visit with us. The third time was in 2018. At that time, it wasn't the 8th Street Festival. She was coming to announce her investment in early childhood education under her Access to Quality initiative. And as a result of that, this is a product of that initiative. This is KU Kids Deanwood. With the investment, we received funds from the district, including $269,000 Access to Quality grant by way of LIFT, the Low Income Investment Fund. And this allowed us to expand the supply of high quality child care, create jobs, and invest in our community. The funds, along with nominal rent expenses, allowed us to create this bright, beautiful space and a high quality program for children at a tuition that was affordable to most of the people in the community, most of the families. After opening our doors in March 2021, we currently serve 32 children. And we're working on getting that expanded to 76. We have the space for 76 children, but right now we're licensed for 32, and we have 32. We share in Muriel Bowser's goal of creating more infant and toddler spaces in the city and making high-quality child care affordable to all district residents. We are so thankful for her continued support, and I'm sure the same is true for working families throughout the District of Columbia. With that said, I am honored to welcome Muriel Bowser.
Thank you. Right, give Cassandra a big round of applause. I was listening to your timeline, and I'm reminded that we started a lot of things, and we've had the opportunity because D.C. residents have given me the opportunity to serve, to see things from start to finish. And I know that we're going to see a lot more in the years to come. But I'm grateful for that opportunity to serve and lead and to make the types of investments that we have made. But more than that, I'm grateful to have partners like you who know what you're doing. You're doing it for the right reasons. You do what you say you're going to do, and you serve our residents. So thank you. So please give Cassandra another big round of applause. I'm reminded that when we started this journey, I did not have a little one of my own to think about early childhood education. But we were thinking about it very intently because so many residents were telling us that in order for us to live and grow our families in D.C., we need more, better quality options across all 8 wards. And we need the city to be our partner in doing that. So we set a goal that we would create 1,000 new seats. We beat that goal. And we did it faster than we thought we would. And we also have endured a pandemic, which has been just devastating to early childhood education's model, which was already, fragile. But because people were able to pivot, stay in touch with their families, follow all of the protocols, get all of the relief that was available, there are centers like yours that have grown and that are looking forward to growing. And that's exactly what we have been focused on and what we're talking about. What's also new is Superintendent Grant, who we have recruited to Washington, D.C. As our superintendent for state education. And one of the key duties of the superintendent is to support the ecosystem that supports early childhood education. So we are delighted that she has joined our team. I'm also privileged to acknowledge Brianne Nadeau, who is the council member for Ward 1, and I'm sure she has some personal knowledge about early childhood education for herself and for the people of Ward 1 that she represents. So we've been a long way from H Street, and I recall, and I see some commissioners here, Faith Gibson Hubbard, who helped lead a lot of our efforts for early child care. This is also a win for all of our Thrive by 5 efforts. And everyone will remember, the commissioners here will remember when we built this facility. It started, I was just reminded that it's been here 10 years now. And it seems like longer though, maybe older than 10 years. And this facility was always envisioned to be child care, but for a number of years it lay vacant. Because we had not been intentional about finding the right provider and reaching out to families about what could happen here. We believe that using our own spaces is the way that the district can influence the very fragile model that is early childhood education. So our investment here in Deanwood was one of our first district facilities. And since then, we've added more, including Stevens Early Education Campus, the Military Road Education Campus, soon to be, and I'm not going to forget all of them, but we're a new location in Ward 7, a new location also in Ward 5, and a new location in Ward 6, all to come online in the next, I think, 3 years. So adding those seats is going to mean a lot to families. Now, the superintendent and you would be pleased to know that quantity is good, quantity and quality is what we are after. So these grants allow us to invest in our network so that systems and providers can make sure that the quality being provided at these early childhood centers is the best. We know that this is the long-term investment that is needed to close gaps in achievement in our city and to make sure that every child, no matter her zip code, has a fair shot in our city. So we are back to announce another round of access to quality child care grants. This is a new $10 million. It will be used again to expand and open and improve existing child development centers. We are also excited to announce that we've selected the Low Income Investment Fund to operate the grant program. So I want to thank and congratulate the LIFT team. You've been a fantastic partner in this work and a partner with the government, with child care centers and with families. And so with that, we're going to hear from Laura Jackman, who is the Director of Early Childhood Care and Education at the LIFT Fund. But before that, I want to acknowledge and welcome Councilmember Nadeau, followed by Laura Jackman.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Congratulations, Cassandra. I'm Brianne Nadeau. I'm the Ward 1 council member, but I'm also the chair of the Committee on Human Services. And that work helps me bring a focus to serving all of our most vulnerable residents here in the District of Columbia. I'm thrilled to be here today to join Mayor Bowser and Superintendent Grant, Cassandra, in celebrating KU kids receiving an Access to Quality Childcare Expansion grant. There is so much learning and growth that happens for a child before age 3, and finding a high-quality provider here in the district is an enormous challenge. As a mom of 2 kids under 5, I know personally how difficult it can be to find a provider and how important it is that that provider helps us continue to be an active part of the workforce. Most of our parents are working, and so we need our child care providers in order to thrive and provide for our families. On top of that, child care is expensive, and often nearly as expensive as housing here in the District of Columbia. But one thing that's really important to reflect on is that child care professionals can earn on average $17 to $18 an hour, or only $31,000 a year, hardly a salary that attracts many people to a new career, especially because we are ensuring that everybody has degrees and credentials so that they can better serve our kids. So we're in a critical moment in our city's history. Our communities are still reeling from a pandemic that hit Black and brown families the hardest and exacerbated the stark inequities we have here in the district. So we cannot afford to return to a status quo that leaves our child care workers vastly underpaid. And that's why last year, 3 of us council members, me, Janice Lewis George, and Charles Allen, took bold steps to build on the temporary infusion of federal dollars and make a permanent, transformative investment in a just recovery that leaves no one behind. By asking a little more of our wealthiest residents, we are raising wages for the predominantly Black and brown women who provide child care, and we're fulfilling the promise of groundbreaking 2018 passage of the law known as the Birth to 3 bill that will expand our investment to support the child care sector and ease the burden on DC families. So that amendment, the Homes and Hearts Amendment, allows us to begin paying early childhood professionals, and like the highly skilled and essential educators they are. Tuesday, the council this week voted to authorize one-time payments to early childhood educators as the first step in this program as part of the work of the Early Childhood Educator Equitable Compensation Task Force. So we're all working together here in the District of Columbia government to ensure that we have access to high-quality child care, that our workers are well compensated, and that we can keep that pipeline going so that as we build out more slots, we have all the teachers we need to keep our children in care. So thank you again, Mayor Bowser, for your partnership in this work, and thank you to KU Kids and all of our early childhood educators for the critical work that you do and for hosting us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. We've also been joined by Councilmember Gray. Thank you for being our host today, Councilmember Gray. And we are going to be joined by Laura now. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Laura Jackman, the Deputy Director of Early Care and Education at the Low Income Investment Fund. Thank you to Mayor Bowser, Dr. Grant, Councilmember Nadeau, and Cassandra Nelson for having us here today. LIF is a national nonprofit community development financial institution whose mission is to advance equity, opportunity, and well-being for everyone in the U.S. Since our founding, we have invested nearly $3 billion, serving over 3 million people. Quality early care and education is one of the best investments our nation can make in its future for kids, working families, and our economy. It increases academic and life outcomes for children, enables parents to go to school or work, and creates jobs and broader economic benefits for communities. Over the last 25 years, LIF has invested $235 million to create or enhance 283,000 ECE slots nationwide. The pandemic has underscored and exacerbated the critical need to invest in quality childcare small businesses and make quality, affordable care and education available to all families. Since 2018, LIF has been working in the District of Columbia to increase supply, quality, and affordability of childcare. From 2018 to 2020, under a grant from OSSI, we administered the first round of access to quality grants with the goal of creating 1,000 new infant and toddler slots. Ultimately, the program funded the creation of 1,244 new infant and toddler slots in licensed childcare programs. Every $1 of access to quality funding invested leveraged an additional $3 of funding from other sources, and the money invested will increase childcare providers' revenue by over $19 million. LIF is proud to be named administrator of the next round of access to quality grants, a vital and innovative way to create more opportunity for district families, which has been championed and led by Mayor Bowser and the leadership at OSSI. We are excited to celebrate today here at KU Kids Deanwood, one of 40 programs that was funded through the first round of the Access to Quality Childcare program. The child development facility Cassandra and her team have built here is a shining example of the success of that program. We are excited to build on this success and to continue to grow the supply of infant and toddler slots in the district. Facilities like KU Kids at Deanwood give more children in DC a safe, healthy, educationally rich, and beautiful environment in which to learn and play. LIF extends its thanks to all of the district's child development facilities for all the work they do to support the community. Thanks again to OSSI and Mayor Bowser for the partnership that is helping to bring more quality early care and education options to district families. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I want to introduce Superintendent Grant, and then we'll have an opportunity for some questions.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. Again, just want to acknowledge and send greetings to everyone. Mayor Bowser, thank you for leading the charge, leading the city, and gathering us here today. If you still yourself for a couple of seconds, you will actually hear the sound of children. And if you take that all in, given all that we've been through, it is actually quite historic that we're standing here today. And so I do want to say, take a moment and acknowledge children are in school and they're safe and they're learning, and that's where they should be. That's why we're gathered. I want to just frame some of the conversations with some next steps for individuals who will be listening and hearing, how do I actually get access to my child, getting access to one of these amazing seats. This facility is beautiful, and so thank you for not just delivering, but over-delivering for our children. The grant is an important investment in our littlest learners. Oftentimes we don't think about our littlest learners, but they're front of mind at OSSI and for me and for the mayor. We are committed and continue to be committed to ensuring that we have not just options, but high quality options that any resident would feel safe and excited to have their children take part in. And we want to grow the sector, and we're unapologetic about that. We know that childcare is critical for families who need to return to work, working mothers who need to know that they can be front of mind in the office and actually know that their children are being held, taken care of, and invested in. I want to take a moment to thank all of the early educators, those here at KU and throughout the district. They've held us together through the pandemic. Many never closed, many stayed open. And as I stand before you today, 486 child care facilities are open and thriving in the district with over 27,000 seats. Our sector in Washington, D.C. is modeled across the country, and individuals look to us to say, what is next? How do we make sure that the littlest learners are, in fact, learning? And with Mayor Bauer's leadership, we're going to keep going. We've provided nearly $25 million to child care providers during the pandemic, everything from PPE to masks, and we will be also ensuring that they have access to testing and healthcare guidance that keep, again, our facilities open and our children safe. I'm proud and honored to serve under Mayor Bowser's leadership, knowing that our facilities grew during the pandemic, that we brought more facilities online, we kept more slots open. With that, I encourage families to visit mychildcare.dc.gov to understand how to search for facilities, to understand the process of bringing your children back. We have facilities with slots available throughout all eight wards in the district. And so if you need a safe place for your child to be loved and to learn, we are here to serve you. Last but not least, we have started this month ensuring that child care vacancies and pricings are available on our sites. Like Cassandra said, we ensure that the access is affordable, that every resident has a place that their children can go and that they can afford to send them there. Through these programs and others, we are delivering on a long-term investment made by Mayor Bowser to ensure that our children have a bright future. We talk a lot about recovery, but recovery starts with our children. And I'm so thankful that today we're here to have a visible reminder of the importance of investing in our littlest learners, our children. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think, Superintendent, we have a big check.
We do have a big check.
We want to invite Laura to come up to accept it, and this check will be distributed to providers that are opening slides.
Your check.
Congratulations. Okay.
This side, Jackie?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And then, I don't know how much of the center we'll be able to see, but we'll be able to go inside it all. Okay. Hi, council member. Fantastic to see Anita Vons, at-large council member for housing and for kids.
I'm not trying to impose, but I thought it would be appropriate for me to stand in for the entire council.
Or that you have two of your colleagues here. But we'll get another picture. How about that? All right. Any questions? Questions?
Mayor, how does it fit in with, the council passed bill, I guess, $10,000 each to 3,000 child care workers?
Uh-huh.
How does this, do the people who work here all benefit from it?
Well, let me ask Councilmember Nadeau to speak to that. I'll have Sam. Could you repeat it for Brianne?
Sure. Councilwoman, what I asked was the 3,000 people who are going to get $10,000 each. Does that apply to the people who work here?
It should, yeah. It should apply to all of our early childhood educators. That's the plan.
So this is like any school that deals with young people under the age of 5 or something like that? I mean, how does
It's
it
for
work?
our early childhood, so it's 3 and under.
3 and under.
Yeah, birth to 3, yeah.
One second, please. 1 second. We have another question?
There you go.
Yeah, Mayor Bowser, could you, DC, I think, I don't know with the exact where we stand, but it's certainly one of the most expensive places in the country, yet childcare. Mm-hmm. How does this grant specifically ease that problem and help people to get more affordable childcare? Can you talk about just how many spots would be open based on this? And
sure, and I'm going to
kind of
ask the superintendent to come up and talk about some specifics. Childcare is expensive here, and that's why we've been very focused on opening more seats and opening more seats in more places. And you heard the superintendent say we have openings across all 8 wards. And part of making quality investments is to make sure that families will go all over the city to access child care. So, Superintendent, let me ask you to speak to the $10 million.
You accurately framed most of the highlights. This investment will ensure that we're able to expand options up to 1,000 is the next mark. We exceeded our first investment of $10 million by coming roughly at 1,200 or so, and so we hope to match that. Expanding options also allows for there to be a variety of options, and so we have private options, subsidized options, and then hybrid options so that residents aren't feeling the burden of the cost of child care. Again, we do encourage residents to visit our My Child Mayor.dc.gov to understand the options that work best for them. But finances should not be a burden for residents to get access to childcare in the district, though we acknowledge that it's expensive. We've launched historic investments to stabilize our childcare sector throughout the pandemic, and we will continue to make those investments to ensure that individuals can have access and that our sector continues to grow.
But we also want families to come back. We want them to know that child care is safe, and we want them to come back to pre-K 3 and 4 and above because of the investments that we've made in buildings and facilities and PPE and testing. We know that children, the sooner they have access to structured instruction, the better their school outcomes will be as well.
Hey, Mayor, thanks so much for taking a couple of questions. This is off topic, but I think we've exhausted all the on-topic questions. So I wanted to ask you about the MPD lawsuit and about the commanders. So more fun, maybe. Lawsuit filed last night suggesting that MPD is keeping a watch list of critics and slow-walking FOIA requests from those individuals. Can you comment on that?
I can't comment on the lawsuit. I haven't read it. I understand it was filed last night, but I do understand the accusation, which we take seriously. And all FOIA requests should be handled as expeditiously as possible, and I expect that of every agency. So I'll be looking into that.
Fantastic. Okay, and then a few questions for one of my colleagues, and I'll just list them in all three at the same time, all having to do with the stadium. Is a new stadium in the district still a possibility? Will D.C. finance a new stadium in part or in whole, or will it need to be privately funded by Snyder, the owner? What would be the best location for a new stadium?
There's only one location, and when I say that, I'm talking about D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and that's at RFK. We know that we can have a stadium at RFK because we have a stadium at RFK. And I want to be clear because I think that some messages have been confused. We are not, and I would not suggest that we finance a stadium. What I would suggest, however, is that we do exactly what we did, and I know Councilmember Gray can agree with this, at DC United. And everybody knows that. That we would, everything that we've talked about has been how do we prepare, get access to the land, prepare the land, and any private property that's built on it, including the housing and part, would be separately funded by the use. So in this case, we would prepare the land, and then we would have, the team would have to build the stadium. So I don't, just be careful when you report that you're not saying that Bowser's saying that we're going to build a stadium for the new team, for the team. What we're saying is we're going to do exactly what we did with soccer. We will get access to the land, prepare the land, and the team would have to fund and build their own stadium. The other thing that I don't want anybody to be confused about, so we're not saying that we're going to have exactly what's there now, a stadium surrounded by asphalt. Because that's not what we're saying. Because we need housing, and we know we need housing in the city. We need fantastic parks. We know we need fantastic parks, we need retail, and we need jobs for DC residents. And there's over 100 acres there. So that can happen at that stadium. Our approach is the same as it's always been. The team would change the name. For 7 years, we've been working to get control of the land, which we need whether there's a stadium there or not. But the current situation is unacceptable. And that is a stadium that is falling down. And that is asphalt surrounding it that's not being used for anything. So Events DC, which has the lease with the Park Service, has been working on a design that includes an NFL stadium and one that doesn't. And so we know that we're going to take one of those paths.
Mayor Bowser, just going back to the Watchless lawsuit, in there's the allegation that this was thriving under Chief Newsham, but that it may still be going on under Chief Conte. Are you concerned that this practice may still be going on?
I don't acknowledge that, I can't acknowledge that a practice was going on. And so until I have more information, I'm not going to, I can't comment on that. What I can say, as I've already said, is our expectation of every agency, including MPD, is that FOIA requests are dealt with as expeditiously as possible. Now, if you have any experience with FOIA requests, I assume that you do, they can be very specific and can be quickly responded to, or they could be very vast and take some more time to respond to. So I want to make sure your listening public understands that some FOIA requests can be quickly answered and others can't. But none of them, the speed at which we respond to it should be agnostic to who's asking for it. Yes.
Yeah, if I could just follow up on this, because, Mayor, I got to tell you, reading this sent chills through a lot of reporters this morning. And when you were first elected, you ran on a platform of transparency.
Yep.
When you stood before us in G9 with your first cabinet, you told us that you were going to try to minimize the need for FOIAs.
That's true.
That
And
is true.
we have.
No, you have not. And I got to tell you, the idea, look, the idea that some FOIAs are handled expeditiously, I think doesn't ring true with a lot of us who routinely file FOIA requests. And so my question is, I get you can't speak to a lawsuit, but have you told Chief Conte that if this system exists to end it immediately?
I know you've had the benefit of more time to read the allegations, Mark, and I'm going to spend some time with it. So I can't comment on it specifically. But what I will tell the chief and all of the directors is that they have to deal with all of our FOIA requests expeditiously, and they should be agnostic to who the questioner is.
But why do we still need to file FOIAs? Again, when you were first elected, you said you were going to try to minimize that, and there's been no minimization, if that's even a word, I apologize, of the need to file FOIAs. Something I asked the chief most recently at a press conference with you was, why do we still have to file a FOIA for a traffic police report and not for a murder or a rape or a sex assault? But for a traffic report, we have to file a FOIA, and that takes months and months, and there's nothing expeditious about that.
Is this the issue around the ambulance chasing?
That's what you fall back on, yes. But
Okay. I mean, it's a legitimate issue. But, Mark, I'm not going to go back and forth with you on it. I got your point. And the thing that I'm not armed with the information that I need to talk to you about is the things and the data that we put out. A lot of data that we put out so that citizen, whether it's around traffic volumes, a whole sorts of data that we're putting out proactively that people don't have to FOIA. So that's why I'm pushing back with you on that statement, that maybe that's not information that you use every day, but a lot of people do use it every day, that we put out a lot of information that will never have to be FOIA'd because we put it out proactively.
I appreciate that. Two other off-topic questions. Yesterday, Director Rodriguez acknowledged that his agency, HCMA, is under an investigation for human resources, possible violations there. Tom Sherwood has reported that it is actually Director Rodriguez who may be the focus of some of these allegations. What can you tell us about that? And were you or your administration aware that there may have been problems when he was in New Jersey, that there were lawsuits associated with Director Rodriguez when he held the same position in New Jersey?
Yes, I'm aware of a lawsuit that Director Rodriguez, allegation against Director Rodriguez in New Jersey. He was properly vetted and hired. And I am also frequently giving human resources support to all agencies. If we have a question that's credible for one of our employees, it's my obligation as their boss to look into it.
So what is the status of, does he still enjoy your full faith and confidence?
Absolutely.
And can I ask you about OUC? This is my last off topic. The director,
Of course.
The interim director, I believe, has been interim director for more than a year. There was just a report of a lengthy delay in getting to what turned out to be a fatal shooting the other day. Why have you not submitted her name or anyone's name to the council to become the permanent director of OUC? Are you any closer to that? What's
As Mark, I never make a decision until I'm absolutely certain, and that's what we continue to work on that. That's a very important agency, as you have noted. And I hope to be talking about its permanent leader with the council soon. Yep. Hi.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you so much for what you're doing, the $10 million.
Thank you.
Recognizing KU for their work.
So we haven't
What I-
exhausted all of the questions about early childhood education, as has
No,
been
I'm
stated.
taking us right back to childhood. I'm
Okay, all right.
All right. So, looking at the fiscal recovery dollars that have come into DC, can you, one, explain the process that is in place or that you're using to really have community engagement to help define what the priorities will be for utilizing those dollars? And then my second question is, are any of those dollars going to be dedicated to making sure that centers who are under populated right now, because not everybody's at full capacity because of COVID, but they're also losing money when they don't have full capacity. But these dollars can be used to help close that gap, to make sure that their doors stay open. Is that part of your plan as well?
We've done a lot of that, and I'm not going to remember it off the top of my head, but thank you for that question. But the emergency child care grants that we put in place were pretty, do you remember the number, Superintendent? We did we did like $25 million in child care stabilization grants that have already been put out, in addition to a lot of our child care facilities receiving PPP loans to also help close those gaps.
So thank you, and I
Yeah.
know about that, and I'm
Okay.
following it, and I appreciate that. But there's still a lot of centers who have a lot of revenue loss.
Yeah.
Will there be, there's more money.
Yeah.
Will there be more dollars being allocated?
Yeah. Let me turn to the superintendent on that.
Sorry, great question. So we have stood up millions of dollars of stabilization grants. We've just announced another stabilization grant. The goal of the resources invested today were to grow our sector and add an additional 1,000 seats. We should actually just talk after this about additional investments we're going to continue to make. I think the theme that you've heard here today and continues to be true is that the mayor has made historic investments in early child care, particularly through the pandemic, and we continue and will continue to make those investments as needed. I'm keenly aware of our facilities that are fully subscribed and those that are still in need of ensuring, and that is why you've heard the mayor say several times to parents and residents that the facilities are open and that they are safe and that they are ready and waiting to welcome your children back into the facility. That's the new work of recovery, is getting a deep sense of who has space, who does not have space, who has the capacity to expand, and that through line. But there will continue to be investments made to ensure that your doors can stay open. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Oh, Commissioner, and there's one last community question. You'll have the last question. I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. Commissioner, and then the young lady in the back has the last one.
Oh, you go. Commissioner Anthony Lorenzo Green is an off-topic question.
Okay.
My concern is if something was to happen in this giant facility and I requested information, a FOIA request with MPD, would I receive it? Would that be approved? Because right now, as of nearly 4 years ago, I submitted a FOIA request for things that happened in this community along Sheriff Road that involved MPD. And I found out from a retired member, who I might add, I had to meet at a Ward 6 ANC meeting just to get confirmation that it was even being reviewed and redacted, as she stated to me in person.
Okay.
Will I get my FOIA request responded? Am I still on this FOIA blacklist?
I don't know.
And why is my First Amendment rights being violated here in the District of Columbia? I am a native. I am from this very community, and I'm very offended that anybody will put me on a watch list just because I ask questions about what happened in this community. I really, truly need an answer to that, maybe in writing, but that has to be rectified.
Thank you for your question, and I assure you, I'm never going to try to stop anybody's First Amendment rights, so thank you for that question. Yes.
How you doing, Mayor? Commissioner Holmes here, Chair of ANC 7C and this single-member district that we're all in right now.
Well, congratulations, Commissioner.
Absolutely. A good amount of councils here as well. So this is great. So we can ask a bunch of good questions right now. First, we're going to get
in person.
We're going to talk about Deanwood stuff first.
Okay.
So on topic, In terms of, thank you for working with the Dean with City Association and ANC 7C, so we can go ahead and get this space addressed that way vacant since 2010 when this building opened.
Yep.
But what we also want to address is basically talking about the feeder pattern, and with OSSI, this was one of the reasons why we wanted this place open, to make sure that we could start talking about what can we do better to leverage and bring up the feeder pattern for all of the schools over here in Ward 7, so we can make sure we start getting those numbers up.
Okay.
And we want to know if there have been any efforts on that can be addressed as well, because we think there's not a lot of
You mean with early child care to pre-K 3?
elementary school. There's not a lot
Okay.
of talk between the two.
Okay.
Or from experience with my child. So we want to see that is some of this also going to be addressed as part of that process to kind of help our school systems around here. That's one question. The second question is and thank you for talking about the workers, is anybody working with the program that's coming out of IDEA, because they are also doing, teaching our young folks how to be a care facility for daycares. So I want to know if there was any partnership that works in partnership with what this announcement is due. And then we'll do the first two, and then we'll get to the next one.
I know you're demonstrating how people want to come to their ANC meetings in person and ask questions. One of your constituents told me that yesterday, but that's off topic. Your first question was about feeder patterns. And it is part of our discussion because, as you know, I'm going to talk about pre-K 3 first. We have more, our pre-K 3 seats are citywide, and there is some question of if you go to a citywide school, or especially one of our citywide programs like Stevens or Military Road, where do you go from there? So I think that there's some energy around having that discussion. You mentioned IDEA Public Charter School. Okay, I'm gonna ask the superintendent to follow up on some synergies with what we're doing here.
Okay, and again, I appreciate you being here twice in 7C in 2 days, so I really appreciate you coming out here on the East End, and the discussion that we had yesterday about the cross border task force.
Yep.
Being able to address that. What we're seeing is that, of course, it's not just at the borders on Eastern Avenue and going down Division and other locations, but it's coming in a little bit. And so I have constituents who are reaching out to talk about concern about the crime that's occurring interior, not just at the borders, but interior as well.
Right.
For example, when I was at your event yesterday, somebody was being stuck up here at the same time, over here. And then I rushed from there to over here to talk about that matter. So we're hoping that, again, especially in front of the rec center, is now maybe not that $10 million, but some type of additional funding or something necessary to make sure that that people feel safe that they can come to their third space in their community and be able to enjoy without having the issue of being stuck up, but by gunpoint or carjacked coming out of the rec center. So do we have any type of plans to combine some of this stuff, because public safety is starting to mix in with school?
Well, our recreation center investments with lighting and the appropriate personnel have been longstanding. What we talked about yesterday, and we certainly will look for ways to make it more robust, is getting to the young people who by and large are committing these carjackings on both sides of the border before it happens. These are very serious crimes. While we were at the press conference yesterday, you noticed some helicopters overhead, and there was, I think, a 15-year-old apprehended who had committed a robbery. So, we're dealing with a very serious issue of locating these young people. Once their arrests are made, making sure they're getting the appropriate services, and they're being held accountable for what they've done. And it has our complete attention. And we recognize that we're not just talking about a 2-block radius or 2-block distance on one side of the line or the other. We recognize that it affects the entire border community.
Final question that we'd like to discuss about education is basically inclusionary education. But we'll have some of the students over here in Ward 7, they're going to come with IEPs. They're going to come and need services on top of that. In terms of the daycare to early care transition, what are we doing to boost up that inclusionary education, so that it's not just, we get them here, we do a strong start, we identify, we move them over to a contained class. We're not really trying to integrate and make a classroom that's inclusionary throughout the process. So probably this is a.
Let me ask the superintendent.
Oh, I'm over here nodding my head. It's like you're in my cabinet meetings. So one, thank you for acknowledging the great work of Strong Start. So exceptional program, individuals who once again have served our families. And Strong Start is moving from being in a virtual posture to getting individuals back in homes with families, literally getting our children off to a strong start. And the question you ask is so essential. We are working really deliberately in Strong Start. There are transition liaisons that work with families to make sure that when children transition into their formal educating years, that they get those supports put in place. And so I feel like you and I should just have a meeting so that I can make sure we're on the same page, so that the individuals you represent understand what they should be expecting as their children transition. But there is an intentional, deliberate process to make sure that our students who have special needs or special learning exceptions, that those things travel with them as they transition into their formative education years.
Okay, last question.
One comment.
Okay.
The first question is coming from DC under 3. I want to know, how will home-based child care centers benefit from this money?
Okay, that's a great
However,
question. Go ahead.
I'm here to personally thank you, Mayor Bowser,
You're welcome.
for beginning the prioritization process for early childhood education. I'm a new member of Spaces in Action, and they're doing exactly what we've been trying to do for years. And it's time. The time is now, and enough is enough. Let's give the children what they deserve, and this is all they deserve. Every
Yes.
child in the district and every center should model this program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the acknowledgement of the work. The quick answer is that programs that are ready and show the ability to grow and scale, regardless of if they're home-based or if they're center-based, will have access to these resources.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out. And probably we can just peek. We can just do a little peek through to see how it's turned. This is, what are you going to use this space for? This is like the recreation area? Okay.